that is really a part of our human experience that we don't tap into enough. That we really get bogged down in this, oh, well, this is why, everything sucks. This is why, my life is so hard. And that is not to say that there aren't things in life that we can't control, right? Sometimes bad things happen to good people, and that's just a part of life. And that is never to diminish someone's lived experiences and the harsh realities that they do face every day. But even in the face of those harsh realities, even in the face of those, not adversaries, what's the word I'm looking for? Adverse situations, you can always choose how bad it is. You can always choose to decide whether or not you are going to allow something to consume your life and to turn you into a person that is broken and consumed by hatred and negativity, or you can stop that pattern, you can interrupt it, and you can change.
After nearly a decade in the classroom as a music educator, Coleman left during a career peak to begin a business as a holistic health coach, author, and public speaker. He started the Uninterrupted Life to explore how to design a meaningful life and help others answer the question, who are you, uninterrupted? Coleman believes that our lives are the stories we tell ourselves, and is passionate about helping others realize their innate power to write their own narrative. The Uninterrupted Life and Coleman's coaching practice is rooted in practical tools and frameworks, the recognition that life happens one moment at a time, and we regain our authority when we actively choose how we experience each moment.
You are now tuning in to the All Things Good podcast.
Welcome, Coleman. How are you today?
Doing well. How are you, Jovanna?
I am doing good. Thank you so much for being willing to share your coaching business and your story with our listeners. So before I get into the question, I do have an icebreaker for you. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, this is going to require you to put your thinking cap on, but you used to be a teacher, so
I was a teacher.
Right, so you should have some good answers for me. Okay, so the question is, if your daily routine was a playlist, what would the first three songs be?
Oh, Lord, I was not expecting a question like that. And I should have an answer for this because I am a musician. All right. If my day were a playlist, the first three songs on the playlist, that's correct? All right.
Yes.
I think one of them would definitely be Let It Be by the Beatles. That is my favorite song of all time. And I just love the message of it. The second one would be Light of a Clear Blue Morning by Dolly Parton. I walk around the house just singing that song. It makes me so happy. I remember my last day teaching that I was just running around my classroom singing that song all day long, and my students are like bawling because, they're going to miss me. And they're like, why are you so happy? I said, why are you so sad? So that would definitely be on the list. And then the third one, let's see, what's another song? This one is it's just one of my personal favorites, and that's Shania Twain's Man, I Feel Like a Woman. Like, there is nothing that my roommate and I love listening to Shania Twain before we go in the gym. And so there is nothing that gets me in the mood and going for the day more than a song like that.
I love that song. There's another song that she has. I forgot what it's called, but I love those songs, and I love the playlist. I love it. So do you think those songs actually reflect your life right now?
I would say absolutely, except maybe the Shania Twain one. I'm not sure that I walk around and I feel like a woman. However, I can relate to the sentiment of just almost like walking on air, this new journey, and I'm sure we'll talk about it later in the podcast, but exploring my entrepreneurial side, doing something completely different with my life after dedicating pretty much my entire professional adult career for the last 10 years is just a thrilling experience. And lately time has felt like it's sort of slowed down, and I really get to enjoy every moment of my day. And so absolutely, these three songs, again, with the exception of maybe not Man, I Feel Like a Woman, do guide pretty much every day that I have.
I love that. I love that. You're so funny. Okay. Let's jump into the question. Thank you so much for your willingness on that icebreaker.
Of course, anytime. Look, I was kind of stumped by that one, but I'm glad I was able to come up with some answers. Usually, when people ask me, even though I'm a professional musician, and they'll say, "Oh, what do you want to listen to?" Like, I am not the person to pick the playlist for the car. I am not the person to, DJ events. Like, I am much happier. I love music and I participate in it in a variety of ways, but that kind of stuff. My roommate is the exact opposite. She knows every song on every album for every artist that she's ever loved, and it's insane to me.
Wow. Oh yes, you did come up with them pretty quickly. So usually people have a hard time coming up with the answers for the icebreaker. So thank you for that. Okay, so we often say that our lives are the stories we tell ourselves.
Mhm.
What is a moment that you realize that you could choose to rewrite your own?
So I absolutely agree. I love that statement. I think that that is my current mantra in life at the moment, that our lives are the stories we tell ourselves. For me, this reality or this became true at an internal level when I decided to leave teaching. I had spent probably about 2 years going back and forth of recognizing and acknowledging that I was not happy in my teaching career, but grappling with how do I get out, or how do I do something different because I love it so much. I loved my students. I loved I call them my kids, and that's probably how I'll refer to them on the podcast. But I loved my kids. I loved what I did, and I was good at it. I was incredibly successful as a music teacher. And so for a long time, I held myself back by telling myself that if I left teaching, it was a sign that I was quitting, or it was a sign that I had failed, that I couldn't make it to the end. And I think most importantly, I would tell myself that I was abandoning my students, that I was abandoning the kids in front of me that needed me, and my future students that, would come through my door. Because as a teacher, I recognize the importance of having quality, passionate teachers. And I know I was that for my students. And so leaving that felt was really difficult for me to grapple with. And so, over the course of about 2 years, and really asking myself some very heavy questions: what do I want to experience out of life? What do I want my days to look like? And most importantly, what am I sacrificing right now that is keeping me from being able to have that in the life that I want to live? And so, I began to rewrite the story and recognize that just because I left teaching doesn't mean I'm a failure. It was a part of my journey. It was an important part of my journey. It made me the person that I needed to become for this next step in my journey and in my adventure. And I also changed the narrative to be focusing on, I was not leaving my skills as a teacher. I wasn't leaving the skills or the things that I developed in terms of cultivating meaningful relationships with my students or sharing my passion with others, that I wasn't getting rid of that or leaving that in a past life. I was just getting the opportunity, or that now I have the opportunity to transfer that same passion into a new vessel and into a new community. And so for me, as I began to change that story and stop telling myself the reasons why I couldn't do something, or to stop telling myself why it wasn't a good idea, or what I was, what I would be losing or missing out on, and turn it into a story that focuses on what can I gain from this new experience? What have I learned that has prepared me and led me to this moment?
Right. I love that. And I love the fact that you had that real internal moment where you question, am I making the right
Mhm.
decision? Oh my God, am I going to fail? Or whatever the thought process was. But you still decided to move
Mhm.
forward despite that narrative that was playing within your
Mhm.
mind. And I think that's important for our listeners to know, because even if you go in a completely wrong direction, different direction, it doesn't mean that
Mhm.
it's wrong. Like you can be a
Absolutely.
musician one day and then the next day you're what? You're a banker or whatever. Just an example. But
Exactly.
it's the fact that you're choosing to do something different. And you're choosing you. You're choosing to put yourself first.
Hmm.
I think
And
that
choosing,
is the go
sorry, you
ahead.
can go on.
No, go ahead.
I would say, and choosing to prioritize what you know to be true inside of you. I think most people intuitively know what they want. They know what feels good. They know what makes them happy. They know what they want more of in their life. And giving yourself the permission to choose that and to actively pursue it, I think is hugely important, that we often don't do that. We don't think that we deserve it. We don't think that we've earned it. And I had to realize that I don't have to do anything to earn a new life or to deserve being able to, just as a simple example, being able to work from home on my own schedule and travel when I want. There's no prerequisite to that. There's no prerequisite to earning a good life, that you can very simply choose to have a better existence.
Right. And the power of choice, the power of
Mhm.
being able to choose and say, you know what? I'm not happy. I want to do
Mhm.
something different. And there is so much power in that alone. So I love that you were able to make that transition and that change.
Thank you. And I am, it was the step that I needed to take. It was a part of my journey. And I think that that's another thing that people kind of get confused about, is they're like, well, why is something new happening? And that's just a part of the journey. When you start feeling these yearnings to do something different, that is a call that you're supposed to answer. And so I am glad that I answered that call. Even, and everybody always likes to talk about, well, I've got my teaching degrees, I can always go back to that. And that's certainly true. That's not necessarily the mindset that I wanted to have, but how I framed that, instead of relying on teaching as like a fallback or a safety net, it is now in my mind that if I do return to teaching, I will be returning to teaching a better version of myself, because I went through this, and that I will therefore be better for my future students, because I chose to prioritize my values and the experience that I want out of life.
Right. And one more thing, because it's people, I need people to understand, I need my listeners to understand that we're going to have so many different versions of ourselves.
I love that.
And I mean, just me, when I reflect back on my life, I'm like, tried so many things.
Hmm.
And often because maybe I didn't complete one, I think, oh, I was a failure. But
Hmm.
no, I'm finding myself. Like
Hmm.
we're on a journey and a discovery of finding who we truly are, what we truly
Absolutely.
like, what we're really called to do. And
Hmm.
sometimes that changes within 10 years, maybe 5 years. And so
Hmm.
don't feel so hard on yourself if you feel like you are going from one job description to another career. You're on
Hmm.
a journey to yourself. So I think I just love it.
Absolutely. And I love that. And I love how you phrased it, in recognizing that sometimes our purpose, like, just because our purpose changes doesn't mean you were doing something wrong. That, whether that's spending 5 years or 10 years in a job, then, it doesn't mean it was a waste of time, that it was a part of what you needed to do in order to become the best version of yourself, as long as we are continuing the journey or continuing to move forward.
Right. We could go on and on about
We
being
really could.
different versions. I personally, because I've lived, I've understood it, and I'm just like, people need to understand this. But okay, we'll
Hmm.
move on. You emphasize living one moment at a time.
Hmm.
What practices help you pause and choose how you experience a moment instead of just react?
I love that question. I love thinking through it. So there are three things that I'm going to say on this, and I'll save the best for last. So the first one is breath work. And especially as a musician, I am very attuned to the relationship between the body and the breath, and, what I call the universe. There's a spiritual teaching out there that our breath is our link to consciousness, our breath is our link to the universe. And I absolutely believe that. So I think returning to the breath is one of the most important things, or one of the most impactful tactics that is often overlooked, that we think that we have to have some complex routine to stop ourselves from being a reactive person, when really the way that we stop reacting is we stop reacting. And so taking a moment to, even if it's just closing your eyes, taking a couple of deep breaths, listening to the sound of the inhale, feeling your lungs expand, and listening to the sound of the exhale is one of the most powerful tools that I can recommend to people, because it doesn't matter how many times you do it. You can just close your eyes and breathe naturally for 30 seconds, and that's still going to calm the nervous system, and it's still going to bring your mind down into a place where you can act in a way that isn't going to make things worse. You can also do like any kind of structured breath work, whether it's box breathing where you inhale for a count of 4, hold it for 4, exhale for 4, and so on. Like it really doesn't matter whether you spend 1 minute or 5 minutes. Taking an opportunity to return to the breath is one of the most powerful tools in everybody's tool belt, no matter where you are. A second thing that I like to do in my experience that kind of keeps me from being in a reactive mode is acknowledging my emotions. I think it's called in psychologists emotional granular. No, it's not granularization, but it's, I don't know. I wish that I could remember the term at the moment, but it's essentially the act of recognizing and naming how you are feeling in a particular moment. So saying, I am feeling frustrated, I am feeling angry, I am feeling upset. And so before I get into that, by doing so, we diminish the power that that emotion has over us. Something that I think we don't realize enough about emotions is that biologically speaking, all it is a release of chemicals from the brain, and on average that those chemicals are in your bloodstream for like 3 to 5 seconds. So the reality of feeling an emotion lasts for 3 to 5 seconds, in its genuine form. Anything beyond that, you are consciously manipulating, you are consciously manifesting into your existence because you're choosing to think about it. Oh my gosh, this is why I have every right to feel frustrated or angry or upset or whatever the case may be. And so when we take a minute, we acknowledge it, we diminish that its power over us. Now, where I take it a step further is I then ask myself the question, do I want to be feeling this way? Do I want to do I want to feel frustrated when I'm in traffic? Do I want to feel angry because someone at the gym left their weights and didn't pick them up, which is one of the most annoying things in the world? But do I want to choose to give my energy in this way, in this moment? And if the answer is no to that question, if you say, no, I don't want to feel frustrated, I don't want to feel unhappy in my relationship or in this conversation, or I don't want to feel badly about myself when I check my bank account, whatever the case may be, when you decide, no, I don't want to feel that way, you then have the option to say, okay, do I need to change my actions or do I need to change my mindset? And that opens the avenue for removing, maybe not removing that emotion, but moving through it in a productive way that moves you forward instead of keeps you in the same psychological loop. And then the last one that I'll talk about, which I think is my favorite one out of the entire list, is to just laugh. I think that laughter is everybody's best medicine. And I often say this is a statement that, or a little thing that my mother and I say back to each other, that there's almost no problem in life that can't be solved with a cold beer and a good laugh. And I think that that is so true for all of our lives, that we get so bent out of shape about these things that we think are serious, that we think are going to be the end of the world, or that we think are things that we're never going to get past. And the reality is that almost nothing in life is as serious as we make it to be. And taking a moment to just laugh, to laugh at the absurdity of it all, to laugh about how ridiculous it is to be upset in traffic when you can't control that, or to be upset that it's raining when you want to go to the beach. Like, there's no reason for any of that. And giving yourself the opportunity to just laugh at yourself and say, okay, you're being a little crazy right now. There's no reason for you to be feeling this way, I think is, for me, my favorite way of moving through situations in a way that allows me to preserve my values and my authenticity, because, or so that I don't give in to the grips of emotional misjudgment. So there would be my three things. Breath work is a very accessible one for anyone. Recognizing and naming your emotions and asking yourself if you want to feel that way, and just having a good old laugh, I think, are three very solid tactics that anyone can implement in their life, anywhere, in any situation.
Yes, I love the tools that you have provided, especially all three of them kind of combined, like just having that internal dialogue and
Hmm.
being self-aware, becoming self-aware of
Hmm.
what am I feeling, why am I feeling this way? Do I need to feel this way? Those questions, you're not crazy for
Right.
asking yourself. Like I find that when I'm speaking to myself, just asking myself questions or even just answering questions, I know people say,
Hmm.
well, there's a saying that says you're only crazy if you answer yourself. But in reality, that is your inner higher
Hmm.
self speaking to you, really showing you
Hmm.
the direction that you should be going.
Hmm.
And so I love the fact that you mentioned that because often we're just so, and the fact that you stated those emotions really do only last for a few seconds.
Hmm.
And we really have the choice. And slowing down and breathing is
Hmm.
highly important. And then the laughter part. When I find that I'm not in the best mood, I
Hmm.
intentionally look for either TikTok reels, YouTube videos that make me laugh because I personally
Hmm.
love to laugh.
Yes.
And I look for it because I'm like, you know what? I don't want to have this attitude. I don't want to feel this way. Let me change my mood. Let me change the
Hmm.
atmosphere and look for things that can make me laugh. So I love that you mentioned that. And also today, really quickly, there was a man, I've never seen him. He's on Instagram and he had this thing called Snap Point. And he came on my reel,
Hmm.
well, in my feed, I should say. And suddenly he said, "You right there, stop, smile." And I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna participate. So I smiled. And then he goes, okay, hold it. Now breathe, breathe in, breathe in. Now, and then he goes, shimmy your shoulders, shimmy your shoulders. And I'm like, okay. So I start
Okay.
shimmying my shoulders.
Hmm.
And then he goes, and now you feel better, don't you? And I said, yeah, I do. I needed
You
that.
do.
And
Yes.
so just little things like that can begin to shift your attitude. What do you think
Hmm.
about that?
I love that, and I think that that is a great tactic. My When I taught, that was something that we always did in class was, and you can feel that energy, especially if you're in a room of people that are tense or hyper focused or unhappy. You can feel the tension in the room. You can feel that energy coming off, and just collectively relaxing together and remembering the importance of it. And I love in that how that video start that you were telling me about started with a smile, that that is really a part of our human experience that we don't tap into enough, that we really get bogged down in this, oh well, this is why everything sucks, and this is why my life is so hard. And that is not to say that there aren't things in life that we can't control, right? Sometimes
Right.
bad things happen to good people, and that's just a part of life, and that is never to diminish someone's lived experiences and the harsh realities that they do face every day. But even in the face of those harsh realities, even in the face of those, um, not adversaries, what's the word I'm looking for? Adverse situations, you can always choose how bad it is. You can always choose to decide whether or not you are going to allow something to consume your life and to turn you into a person that is broken and consumed by hatred and negativity, or you can stop that pattern, you can interrupt it, and you can change the way that you look at it, the way that you view it, and that ends up changing what you believe about the situation, and therefore your actions are influenced as a result. Your thoughts influence your beliefs influence your actions influence who you become. And so by actively choosing to have better thoughts, you will then foster better beliefs that turn into better actions, that turn into a better version of yourself. And it starts with something as simple as remembering to smile.
Mm, I love that. I love that. Speaking about choice, for someone who is living on autopilot, what's the first intentional choice they can make today to feel back in their driver's seat, to feel like they're in control of their lives?
Right, a step one, and my go-to answer for this kind of question, that, what is something that anyone can do right now in this moment to start moving towards a better life? And I have a pretty simple answer for that, and that is to choose one thing to do today that brings you joy. And I'll explain on that a little bit. So we get so bogged down in all of the things that we feel like we have to do, and we tend to condition our happiness or our joy upon the completion of X tasks. I will be happy, or I can be happy, or do things that make me happy when I've completed X, Y, and Z. And the reality is, for most of us, our to-do list is ever growing, that there's never going to be a point where we don't have anything on our to-do list. And so it is incumbent upon us to observe our responsibility to prioritize joy in our life. And so maybe that looks like going for a walk outside. Maybe that looks like sitting and reading your favorite book, or listening to your favorite song because it's your favorite song and for no other reason. The important part is not that you're choosing actions, not that you feel like you should be doing or you feel like will make you happy, that you are choosing something, whether it's a 5-minute thing, 10-minute thing, that brings you peace, brings you serenity, brings you happiness, brings you joy. And so what happens when we do that is our brains start being primed to see joy. Joy is contagious and joy is infectious. And once we give ourselves a little bit of it, we want more of it. And so we start subconsciously aligning our actions to see more opportunities to find joy in our everyday life. And when we choose to prioritize ourselves, and when we choose to give ourselves even small moments of joy, the most important thing we prove is that we prove it is possible for us to experience joy every single day, even if it's only 5 minutes. And once we start proving to ourselves that it is possible, then we start finding and taking more opportunities to give ourselves that joy throughout our days and throughout our lives.
I love that, because you're implementing this technique in every aspect of your life. So whether you're at work, and let's say, for instance, right now, you're not happy at your workplace, but you find a moment to find joy so that you can continue to be productive with your day. I love that. I really do love that.
I kind of relate it to the universe is a mirror. This was one of the first metaphysical kind of lessons that was introduced to me when I was, I think I was 18 or 19. And it took me a long time to understand the gravity and the weight of that statement, that the universe is a mirror, that what you see in the world is not a reflection of what is actually there. It is a manifestation of what you believe to be there. And so if you in your heart believe that the world is full of hatred, it's full of negativity, it's full of crime, it's full of, whatever, that's what you're going to see in the world. And if you believe that your life, that in your life you are not deserving of joy every single day, then you are going to see things that reinforce that belief, that what you choose to see, you see. But if you choose to see joy, if you choose to see peace and serenity and happiness, whatever emotion it is you're looking for, and this is true for love as well. If you choose to see love in your life, that is what you are going to see. And so when we recognize that life is not happening to us, it is happening through us, we understand, or we take our responsibility as the driver of our own life to see the things in the world around us that we want to see.
Right. And so I do have one more question before we go for a quick break. So let's say, for instance, someone is in a position where they're on autopilot. They suddenly make the decision that, they're going to find joy in their current situations. However, they know that still and yet a decision needs to be made for change. How do they refrain from staying stagnant, still finding joy, but also still making the choice to move forward? Because I ask this because a lot of people can say, well, I'm just going to find joy in the situation and then and remain here because this is just, this is what I should do. But in reality, the reason why you have to find that joy is because something is saying within you that you're no longer aligned. How can someone kind of navigate that in between?
I think that's a really good question. And what it is talking about, at least to my ears, is bridging like improving your day-to-day existence while also still moving towards a vision of yourself that you are trying to have. And so it's kind of like, I'm going to equate this to making progress in the gym, and hopefully I'll then be able to branch that into the specific situation that you're talking about. If you are trying to lose weight, you're trying to lose 50 pounds, and all you are focusing on is the 50 pounds that you have to lose, and that's all you're consumed with, and it feels like the disparity between where you are and where you want to go is really, really wide, that often demotivates people and leaves them in a position of feeling like they cannot achieve that goal, or that they're too far away and so they might as well give up. So that can be true whether you're navigating a career shift or an identity shift, whatever you're doing, or wherever you're at in life, and you're wanting to see a transformation in who you are. So what I would suggest for that is linking your moments of joy with actions that move you towards that version of yourself. So for example, let's go back to the weight loss. If you just focus on the disparity between where you are and where you want to go, you might not ever make the choice. But if you start finding joy in taking walks because it allows you to be outside, it, lets you listen to your favorite music or your favorite podcast, or you find joy in, a healthy dessert. This was a huge one for me. I'm a big fan of sweets, and I eat sweets far more than I really should, but I love them. So finding joy in healthier alternatives, that is going to be actions that link both the goal that you're trying to achieve and your current state of being. So that would be what I would recommend, is linking the joy that you are finding in your life with actions or with ideas or with momentum that moves you in the direction of the change that you want to make. And so even if you're struggling with clarity, right, with not knowing what that change looks like, you're sitting there feeling to yourself, I know this doesn't feel right, I know this doesn't feel like how I want it to feel, but I'm really not sure how to go about changing it, I'm not sure about how to move forward, then linking your moments of joy with doing clarity exercises, sitting down and journaling, watching videos, or listening to or reading material that might help tease out or detangle some of the confusing thoughts swimming around in your brain. Linking your joy or moments of joy to clarity exercises is another way of still finding joy in your life and moving yourself in the direction that you need to go.
I love that. Let's talk about habits, because this is
Okay.
something that you brought up in the interview when you first spoke, and I really love the idea of what you can present to the podcast. So, what is habit stacking? How can someone use intentional choices to stack habits that actually stick instead of fizzing out? So first, let's answer what is habit stacking, and then what can someone do to begin making those habits?
Absolutely. And this is a question. Habit stacking is honestly very new for me. I read the book Atomic Habits by James Clear. I believe that's who the author was. I always get him and Adam Grant confused because I've read several of their books. Anyways, so habit stacking is a pretty simple concept where you just link an existing behavior with a desired behavior. So you link something that you are currently doing, a habit that you already have, with a habit that you are trying to form, and it usually follows either a before or after formula. After I do current habit, I will do new habit. Now, another way of doing habit stacking is you can link something that you want to do with something that you don't want to do. This was a huge habit stack for me in getting over my hurdles in content creation, that I started saying, before I can go in the gym, I will post one piece of content, right? And so you're linking an existing behavior with a desired behavior. This could be, after I brush my teeth, I will do 5 minutes of yoga, or after I wake up in the morning, and drink a glass of water, I will go outside for a walk. And so that's really essentially what habit stacking is just linking a current behavior with an existing behavior. And the philosophy there is that you just add one new behavior at a time, hence the stacking part of it, that once you link these two together, and you're very comfortable with that, then you add in another one, then you add in another one. And where this leads to practical implications is, oftentimes, in order to achieve any kind of meaningful goal, if we go back to wanting to lose weight, for example, in order to achieve any sort of meaningful goal, it is not the result of a singular action, right? If I want to have abs, I can't do one set of 10 crunches and expect to have abs. It is a conglomerate of multiple factors contributing towards the success of that goal. And when we're setting out, or when we're starting out, when working towards a new goal, it can feel like a mountain that we have to climb. We can feel like we're really, really far away from it. And so habit stacking allows us this tool, or this framework, for what is one little thing that I can do, plus another little thing, plus another little thing, plus another little thing. And it's all of these little things that stack together that lead us towards success in our goals. Now, in terms of preventing that fizzling out, or maintaining and sustaining motivation, the best tool for sustaining motivation is recognizing small wins. In fact, there's a lot of literature out there, that, like scientific literature, that confirms this, and a lot of people that are just in the space talking about goal setting and motivation and living a better life, that recognize the importance of those small wins. What happens when we acknowledge small wins is we release these short but consistent releases of dopamine from the brain. That's the feel-good hormone. And so that gives us that sustainability of it, because big goals and accomplishing big goals, one of two things usually happens. Number one, the dopamine reward is really very, very intense for a short amount of time, and it is infrequent and insufficient throughout the process. Or what happens is, we get to the end of our big goal, we get to the end of our mountain, and it doesn't feel like we thought it would feel. And then we look back at ourselves and we say, did I just waste all of the time that I spent working towards this goal? And on the one hand, no, I don't think the time is ever wasted. But on the other hand, we can mitigate that by recognizing the progress that we make along the way. And that makes it easier to keep going. I recently came across one of my favorite quotes ever that is related to this topic, that says, it's okay to suck, but it's not okay to skip. And I think that that is a great reminder that perfectionism is the enemy, and just showing up is most of the battle. If you just start, if you just show up, if you just step outside and take 10 steps, that's more than most people ever do. And so just by showing up, even if it's not perfect, showing up messy and imperfect, right? We hear that thrown around a lot, that even if it's not everything right away, just the simple act of showing up and starting puts you in the only position possible to be successful. You can't write a book if you don't write the first sentence. You can't, a stupid quote there is, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step, right? If we're thinking really basic colloquialisms or idioms there, but the sentiment is true, that starting is always the hardest. And when we show up, even when it's hard, even when it's not perfect, showing up to the gym for 5 minutes on the treadmill, yeah, it may not be great. It's not your full 30-minute workout, but you at least showed up. You showed up for yourself and you proved to yourself that you are the person who keeps moving forward even when it's hard.
Right. I love that. Wow, Coleman, I feel like you're speaking to me in so many ways.
Well, I am glad.
I love that. I love that. But it brings people hope. It gives people a
Hmm.
chance, an opportunity to, like you said, show up for themselves,
Hmm.
believe in themselves even more, and really
Hmm.
just continue to take the initiative is what it's
Hmm.
really about. It's what it sounds like. It's just taking the initiative to do something. And despite of what it looks like and what it feels like, but
Hmm.
the point is that you're doing it. And so that is
Absolutely.
amazing. I love that.
I think that that is exactly correct, that doing the thing is more important than doing the thing perfectly. We get
Mhm.
so bogged in, well, if I can't do it, and this used to happen to me, especially in my content journey was, well, if my hair wasn't fixed or if it didn't look right or if I didn't do X, Y, and Z or if I hadn't trimmed my beard, then I'm just not going to make content. It's like, that's ridiculous. That is we can have a whole discussion about limiting beliefs another time, but doing the thing, even if it's not perfect, is the only way to get better at doing the thing, and it's the only way to succeed. In that, the and I've said it before, the first step is always the hardest. It's always going to be hard to start. It's never going to feel good. Going back to the gym after 2 weeks out of 2 weeks off, yeah, it's not good and you're going to hurt. It's going to be a painful experience, but the only way to get to a point where you are the person who has achieved whatever it is that you're trying to achieve is to start and just prove to yourself that you do show up for that every single day.
Right. I love that. Okay, so a lot of people think that change has to be big and dramatic. And I think we've
Mhm,
kind of answered this question a little bit, but
mhm.
if you have any other insight, how do you help clients see the power of small intentional steps?
I equate this idea to New Year's resolutions, and I think it paints a really helpful picture because that's a concept that most of us are familiar with. New Year's resolutions are, I hate them. I think that they are terrible from a psychological perspective. And I hate them because they usually come from a place of regret that we feel like, or we spend all of December overeating, overspending, and exhausting ourselves. And so by the time we get to January 1st, we have to feel like we have to become an entirely new person overnight. And this is not just true for New Year's resolutions, it can be at any point throughout the year. But what we fail to recognize is that, number one, we don't just wake up as a brand new person tomorrow, no matter what anyone tells you. Yes, every day is a new opportunity to reinvent yourself, but it is a process, it is a journey. Rome wasn't built in a day, and the habits that got you to the point where you feel like you have to be a new person, those took time to develop. It took years, potentially, to develop the negative habits or the habits that you want to change that got you or led you to this point. And so when we feel like we have to reinvent ourselves overnight or immediately, then it becomes a much more daunting task. And so something that I work on with my clients is a really practical strategy that we use is something that is called reverse engineering. So you take the goal that you're wanting to achieve and you scale it all the way back down to, what can I do right now in this moment? So for
Mhm.
example, let's say you want to write a book. If you spend all of your time focusing on, I've got to write a 500-page book, then that's a really daunting task. Okay, well, what do you need to do before that? Well, in order to write a book, I probably have to know what I want to talk about in the book. I need to write the first sentence, and then the first sentence becomes the first paragraph, which then becomes the first chapter, which then, leads and builds that momentum moving us forward. So whatever goal it is, if you want to prioritize yourself more, in fact, I'm working with a client right now who she is a single mother of two, and and she spent a lot of her time in a state of self-sacrifice. That's just what mothers do. And now she's at a point where she can take more time for herself. And so we're working on just giving ourselves 5 minutes in the morning, waking up 5 minutes earlier so that we can do some deep breathing. And then once we're feeling good about waking up 5 minutes early, then we add in a protein shake before we take our medicine. Then once we do that, we go for a 10-minute walk, right? And we slowly start layering in the habits, again, going back to habit stacking, the habits and behaviors that lead us to where we want to go. Transformation is not overnight, and transformation comes down to daily intentional choices and actions.
Right. I love that. I love that. And so you have the name of your coaching is Uninterrupted Life.
Mm-hmm.
What exactly does that mean to you to live uninterrupted?
So this question, the statement or the term uninterrupted life came from a TED talk that I watched with Felicia Hatcher. And in that TED talk, she asks the question, who are you uninterrupted? Who are you if your life only has green lights? And that was one of those questions that radically changed my outlook on life, because I had to start asking myself that question. Who would I be if nothing was in my way? And so that's why I started the Uninterrupted Life. And as it grows and develops, and I'm sure that this definition or what it means to me will change over time, but at least right now, living an uninterrupted life is not just doing what you want, when you want, how you want, right? That's not necessarily my vision. And living an uninterrupted life also isn't a freedom from life's burdens. Living an
Mhm.
uninterrupted life means taking the journey in stride and enjoying the process as it unfolds before you. That life is going to happen whether you like it or not. And so we can choose to resist it, or we can choose to enjoy the ride. And so for anyone that is wanting to move towards living their uninterrupted life, it comes down to, how do we view these interruptions, in our life? A great one for me, paychecks are an interruption to my life. How do I view paychecks? And now that I don't have a paycheck, what does that mean for my lived experience? And what do we view as these interruptions, whether that is conversations with people that we don't want to talk to, right? That's a really common interruption that people feel like, oh my gosh, I hate when this person calls me. I don't want to blah, blah, blah. How can we use that as a way forward? And how can we choose to not resist that that natural occurrence of life? And how do we ride the wave, or ride the energy, or navigate the road without feeling like we have to clamp down or control everything as it happens? And so a life uninterrupted is not a perfect life. It's not a life that is free from worry, free from struggle, free from stress. It is about changing how we view those things and changing how we approach them. A real measure of growth is not in the removal of obstacles. There are no shortage of spiritual teachings that confirm that life is always going to have struggles. Life is always going to have things just inevitably woven in that are difficult to deal with. And progress, or becoming a better version of yourself, is not removing them completely. It is how you change when those struggles present themselves. In my money journey, for example, I used to let what was in my bank account determine how I felt about myself and my self-worth, and developed a negative relationship with an arbitrary number on a screen, right? And so changing that narrative, going back to changing the narrative, but life uninterrupted is one that doesn't allow things like a random number to determine how I feel about myself or how I feel in my life. And so it can be as simple as asking yourself, how do you want to feel in your lived experience? How do you want to feel when you wake up in the morning? How do you want to feel when you go to work? How do you want to feel when you talk to this coworker, or when how do you want to feel in your relationship with your partner? And from there, even if you don't know the way forward, our feelings are really helpful intuitive guides. When we start identifying, well, I don't know what I want to feel, but I definitely know it's not this,
Mhm.
then we start shifting ourselves and moving in the direction of, this, is leading me to where it's leading me closer to a point where I feel the way I want to feel in life. And it takes some experimentation. It takes some time to figure out. It takes asking yourself, what can I do? If you want to feel energized in the morning, go to bed 30 minutes earlier. If you want to feel better if you want to feel more connected with your partner, sub out a, late night scrolling session or your TV for, connecting, having a conversation, playing a board game together, that we can then, once we identify how we want things to feel, we start moving ourselves towards actions that will give us that feeling. And if those actions don't, then we try it again and we experiment in life. Life is one great experiment happening, in real time for every single person on this planet simultaneously, which is crazy to think about. But approaching life as an experiment, what can I change that might give me, what variable can I change that might give me a different outcome, is a much more fun way of going about life than being bogged down in the calamities that are present in everybody's life.
Exactly. I love that because in essence, what you were saying is don't allow anything to stop you.
Hmm.
Keep going, keep moving, despite the failures, despite the
Hmm.
interruptions, despite the distractions.
Hmm.
And there will be distractions, there
Yes.
will be delays, there
Hmm.
will be hiccups as long as you keep going. I
Hmm.
love every insight that you have given, Coleman. This has been truly amazing. I'm sure it's going to be amazing for my listeners because it was amazing to me. Like,
Oh, I'm
you
so
touched
glad. This is
so many,
amazing for me.
it was so many areas of my life that, I mean, even going to the gym, sometimes I'm hard on myself. I'm like,
Hmm.
I've been doing this for a month now. I don't see any changes, or, there's no drastic changes. And so
Hmm.
every day I'm just like, it's okay, Jovanna. It takes time, not
It
allowing
does.
that, not being able to see that happen so quick as I want it to be to,
Hmm.
discourage me or delay me
Hmm.
from continuing to do that. And then even with workplace, like so many questions, so many decisions that I need to make.
Hmm.
And so I know that if it was helpful for me, it's going to be helpful for many, many more. Coleman. So how can our listeners find you, connect with you, book a session? Let us know.
Well, before I get in that, I just want to thank you again for having me on your podcast. I love talking about these things. I love talking with you, and I am happy to talk ad nauseum. As you can probably tell, I can talk all day long. And so in terms of connecting with me, the best place to do so right now is on Instagram. That is my main social media that I use. It's Coleman.uninterrupted, all one word in there, just with a period. So that's the best place that you can reach out. I'm in the process of developing a website, colemanflingy.com. I'm not sure when this podcast will air, but maybe by the time it airs, my website will be up and ready to go. I offer one-on-one sessions for anyone looking for very specific targeted feedback and instruction and guidance on, improving your life through small sustainable actions and changes. I do have group programs that I'm working on. In fact, I'm currently in the process of writing a book called Tequilibrium that is about navigating the balance between increasingly integrated technology and our humanness. And as a result of that, I'm starting a kind of a group mentorship program with another creator and friend of mine who is also very passionate about disconnecting from technology in order to reconnect with ourselves. So for anyone that feels like they are tech obsessed or even tech addicted, that is a great option for exploring not only what is technology doing to you you as a person, but how you can have a better relationship with it. You can also reach out via email at Coleman@theuninterruptedlife.com. I check that email every day, but those would be the three main ways. So Instagram, my soon to be launched website, and then through email at Coleman@theuninterruptedlife.com.
Awesome. And I'll be sure to put that into the description of the episode.
Awesome.
Thank you so much, Coleman. Hope you have an amazing day, and I will talk to you soon.
Thank you so much. You also. We'll talk soon.
Okay.